Hey everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. You've probably seen the big reveal for Olympia on the Cotton Cuts Facebook page and other social media platforms. You've probably seen a lot of different colorways from different people as they start to finish their quilts, and today I'm going to go ahead and start finishing my quilt off. I have my Clue 10 and of course my Clue 10 packet. Try saying that 5 times fast. It is ready to go and it's time to put everything together and finish out another wonderful puzzle mystery quilt from Cotton Cuts. Also, don't forget that the next Cotton Cuts puzzle mystery quilt for fall of 2022 called Piazza, that one will open up for you to order starting on May 27th. So make sure to go check out the Cotton Cuts website to see what the colorways are. I'm hoping to be another ambassador for that. I'm hoping to be an ambassador for another Cotton Cuts puzzle mystery quilt. So let's see if they end up choosing me again. I hope they do. I'm crossing my fingers. But for today, we're going to finish out the quilt I have been working on, Olympia. So let's go ahead and see what's in Clue Packet 10. Alright, we have Clue Packet 10, and I see that we have a little present in here. Let's go ahead and open it up and see what we have inside. I almost forgot to grab my color guide so that way I could tell which fabric was which. It's the last time we'll need it for this project, but I'm glad I had it close by so that way I could grab it. Anyways, first thing we got a deck of Cotton Cuts playing cards. I love that they give us little gifts along the way. Alright, let's see what all is included in this one. Oh, where are my instructions? That might help. I had to grab my iPad because I couldn't find my directions. I don't know what happened to them, but okay, here we go. We have 4 squares of C fabric. These are going to be borders, so we have 2 of these borders, which are C fabric, and there's actually 4 C fabric borders, and it looks like one is longer than the other from the picture that I have pulled up, so I'm not sure which is which, and I'm not going to unfold them all the way just yet, but we have borders that are of C fabric, and we have 4 of those in total. Same thing with this, we have 2 borders that are 4 borders that are E fabric. It looks like 2 are shorter than the other 2. Not sure which is which, and I'm going to wait to unfold those until I need them. So we have 4 borders that are E fabric. Then we have some more E fabric, and again, one is going to be longer than the other, and these are thicker borders, so we have more E fabric to give us thicker borders around our project today. And last but not least, we have some fabric for the binding. I am debating about using this one or not. I have some other fabric that I will probably show you closer to the end of today's project that I'm thinking about using instead of this black and white stripe. Haven't made up my mind completely yet, but we'll take a look at that as we get closer to completion. Alright, that's all that's included in this packet. It's time to go ahead and start assembling everything, I guess. It's always fun at the very end to put everything together, but it's also a little disorienting because, you know, during the project it's easy to just, you know, put the blocks together and set them aside. Now it's time to put everything together. So let's go ahead, I'm going to clear this off, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so now that we know what is in Clue Packet 10, there's a couple of things that I do want to go over as we're going through the final clue. It is important to remember, at least for me, that a finished quilt is always better than a perfect quilt. So as you're going through, if your points don't line up exactly, if your seams don't line up exactly, if you lose a point or two, it's okay. It is perfectly okay, and that's what makes it a handmade piece by you. So just remember that and don't get too frustrated as you're going through this. Also remember that the border strips that were included in Clue 10 are cut longer than what you're going to need, hopefully. And so if you have some excess, don't freak out. And remember that you can always trim it off. But as you're thinking about trimming it off, remember to measure twice or 3 times or 4 times before you cut. Measure twice, cut once. It's very important to do that. A lot of times I'll leave mine a little bit longer until I'm 100% sure that that's the length that I need. So just keep that in mind and keep those tips going. And again, remember, a finished quilt is way better than a perfect quilt. Okay, we're going to be starting off with the center section. Remember, your seam allowances are 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't matter what you are using on your machine as long as you're staying consistent. So try to use the same machine, and whatever 1/4 inch you were using during the process of this quilt, make sure to stick with that and keep moving forward with that, and it should be just fine. So for step number 1, it says to join section 1B above, above section 3 and section 1A above section 8. So we have clue 1B and 1A, clue 3, clue 8, and we're basically just going to attach them up at the top. There are 2 of them, so we're going to be doing this twice. Remember that there are 2 clue 3s and 2 clue 8s, and so we're going to be doing this, and there's also 2 of both of these as well. So just combine all those together, and what you're going to be looking for is this star pattern that starts to emerge. We don't have anything on this side yet, but you're looking for that star pattern and for your colored blocks to be on the outside. These, which fabric is this? I think this is fabric E. I put my fabric guide somewhere. Your different color fabric is going to be up in that top corner. I hope this is making sense. Let's go ahead and do that, and I'll come back when it's time to move on. Okay, I think I need to make a small correction. I think in the last clip, I haven't gone back to look at it, but I think in the last clip I called this green fabric on my colorway fabric E. It's actually fabric C. So always make sure to look at your guide. I'm doing my best to make sure to give you the proper instructions, but always make sure, if I make a mistake like that, I'll put a note up on the screen and usually some sort of noise to draw your attention to it. But anyways, so when we're complete, we should have something like this with our clue 1B and our clue 3 and then our clue 1A and our clue 8. Always make sure to leave your labels, at least for me. I always try to leave my labels on my pieces until I fully assemble everything, just to make sure that if there's any question, I know which piece is which, if that makes sense. All right, so anyways, moving on to step number 2. I've done that. I have 2 of these. The other one's over at the sewing machine right now. Next, what we're going to do is it says to join a step 1 unit to the left and right of section 1C as shown. We're going to make 2. So we're going to take our step 1 units that we did, and we're going to put them on the left and the right. Here's a couple key things to keep in mind. We have our A fabric up here on our 1C. So A fabric up at the top, our C fabric down at the bottom. C fabric from step 1 that we did, our C fabric is going to be up, and it's kind of opposite that center section or that clue 1C. Does that make sense? It kind of shows up. I love my colorway because those colors really pop and you can really see it. But as you can see, you want them kind of diagonal to each other. You don't want them in a straight line across the top and the bottom. Hope that all makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and we'll come back when that's done. Okay, I put this a little low, but should I shrink down? Anyways, all right, so we're moving on to, we just finished our step 2, so I've gotten mine set up just like this. We're moving on to step 3, and it says to join step 2 units to the top and bottom of section 4A with the C squares in the outer corners as shown. So be careful here. You have your C squares on the outer corners, and then your C squares are also on the inner corners. So they create this kind of square. It's almost like an echoing of these C squares. So you have them kind of here in the center, and then they pop out to the corners. I hope this is making sense. I try my best to kind of give you those key points to look at, so that way you can kind of keep everything straight. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this is step 2 unit, and we have our C squares on the outside, and this one's actually 180, so we turned it around, and now your C squares are going outwards again. All right, so we've got that, and then you put your 4A in the center, and what I'm going to be looking for when I put this one on is I'm going to try and match up this little rectangle. It's a rectangle right now. It'll turn to a square when we sew it in, but I'm going to look for this rectangle to line up with this and this, because as you can see, it's kind of creating that center point where everything radiates out from. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together, and I'm having to back out my camera because we're starting to get larger and larger, but we're getting really close to being done with the center section. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've completed that part. That was step number 3. We're gonna move on to step number 4, but before we do that, I want you to pay attention to something. This is kind of how I indicated if I was doing everything correctly. You'll notice that on my colorway, in fact all the colorways, but on my colorway you'll have these line drawings. That's fabric D, and then we have fabric E, which in my case is the white squares. And the fabric D kind of goes in a circle. So if I'm looking at it, it kind of forms a circle whenever you're looking at it. And that way you know, that kind of indicates to you that the D fabric is in the right place, because I can follow it around the center of this quilt, and it makes that kind of circle. Make sense? I would know something was wrong if, for instance, I had flipped these and I went to follow it around and suddenly it would like not follow that pattern. That's how I would be able to tell. All right, moving on. Step number 4, it says to join the shorter pair of narrow E borders to the left and right of step 3. So we're going to take shorter, I have them down here, and they're only shorter by a little bit. They're not that much shorter, to be honest. So anyways, let me set this off to the side. And basically what's gonna happen is we're gonna take our shorter borders and we're gonna put them on the left and on the right. And then we're gonna take our longer borders and we're gonna put them up top and down below as well. So we're gonna put all of these E fabric borders around. For the Carry colorway, it does use this very tone-on-tone fabric, and it's very hard to tell which side is which side is the right side, and which one's not. So be very careful if you have the Carry colorway that you are putting it with the fabric going the right way, facing out, the right side out. Yeah, it can get kind of hard to tell which way's which, so just be very careful. But I'm going to go ahead and put my borders around this, and that'll be the end for the center section. Okay, there we go. We have finished the center section. I've put on all of my borders all the way around. Probably going to take a break so that way I can press all of this out. But everything looks great and I'm super excited with it so far. So I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we'll go ahead and move on to start building out the quilt even more. I'll definitely have to back my camera up even more, but that's fine. But this is what the center section should look like when you're done, and this is honestly a good stopping point. So I will be back for you. I'll be back in literally seconds, but I'm gonna go ahead and press this out and take a break for a few minutes and then jump right back in. Hey everybody, this is Ian from the future. At least the future part of this video. As you can see, I've gotten some more done. But anyways, I realized when I did step 5, I did it incorrectly. I accidentally matched up my H fabric when you should be matching up your B fabric in the center. I didn't discover this until I was working a little bit later on. So this is a replacement for the original video of step 5 that I put in. Basically, you're going to create something. I'm looking at the camera to make sure you can see it, but basically you're going to put step 5 together with your H triangles. These are the smaller H triangles sitting out here on the edges. I had originally done it so that the center part there, the B fabric, was on the outside, and you'll see as you move along why that's important. And I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it will help you understand a little bit better when you get to step, what is that? Just later on. All right, back to the video. This isn't the best setup, and I apologize. I try my best, but yeah, it's a little weird. It's okay. You get the idea of what's going on. Moving on to step number 6, it says to join section 5A above section 5B, and we're going to make 2 of these in total. So as you're looking at this, your H triangles are going to be facing towards or pointing towards the H fabric, which is at the top of section 5A, clue 5A, however you want to say that. So basically we're just going to join these together. Now as I lay these out on the table, I noticed that my 5B is actually a little bit longer than my 5A. I suspect that's probably because of the triangles and the biased stretch that happened whenever I was sewing them together. It happened, it's not a big deal. I'm probably going to end up losing the edges of my triangles. I'm not too freaked out about that. It's fine. And if I really wanted to, I could probably get in there and figure out how to kind of tighten everything up. I'm not that picky and it will be fine. But what I'm going to try and do the best is match up my center point here on my, which fabric is this? This is fabric B. I'm going to try to take this point on my fabric B and match it up with the center of my fabric E, or this column right here. That's what I'm going to try to do. Again, I'm not going to freak out if it ends up on one side or the other. It's fine. Again, a finished quilt is always better than a perfect quilt. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sew these together, and it looks like we'll be using that on step number 7, so I'll come back whenever I finish that. Okay, I have finished step 6, where I was able to put together our 5A and our 5B, and yes, I do have a little bit of overlap, not a big deal. I'm going to move on. Moving on to step number 7, it says to join a section 7 to the left of step 6, and then join section 9 to the right, and we're going to make 2 of these. So basically we're just following the pattern along. We have our H and our B triangles along the bottom. We have our H's up in the corners that match with the H on top of our center section here, 5A. So we're just going to basically follow this pattern, follow everything around. I'm looking in the camera to make sure everything's good. But yeah, so we're just going to follow this along. We're going to make 2 of these. Same kind of deal going on, and I'm probably going to have to work and kind of move, kind of inch it a little bit and like futz with it a little bit, because I don't think these are going to match. I know my triangles aren't going to match up exactly, but again, it's fine. I'm going to run with it and see what happens. I'll come back when we're done with this, and we'll move on to, it looks like we're going to be adding on another border after this, so get ready for that. Okay, you saw back in step 5 where I had made that little flub up, and it wasn't until step 8 here that I realized it. When I was looking at the picture, I realized that my corners were not going to be exactly right because I had the larger triangle ending. I didn't have this bow tie shape. I referred to it as a bow tie because it kind of looks like a bow tie. But I wasn't going to have this bow tie shape with the cornerstones in them. It didn't look quite right. So I went back. Easy fix. All I had to do was rip the seam in the middle there and just, you know, flip it around and do all that. But it worked out. Everything's fine. Easy fix. And I'm able to move on to step number 8, which says to join step 5, which I fixed, to the left and to the right of the center section with the points of the B triangle facing inwards. So our B triangle, in my case, is this white fabric facing inwards, and the H fabric is going to be pointing outwards. So we almost have like this, if anybody like Mario Brothers, the little spiky rock things. Anyways, we're going to have those H fabrics facing away from, or pointing away from, our center section. So we're going to go ahead and sew those onto the side. I'm going to go ahead and continue because it's just going to be easier for me to sew all this at the same time and come back when we're done. But you're going to sew on the left and the right, just like that. And then you're going to move on to step 9, which says to join step 7 unit to the top and bottom of step 8 with the points of the B triangle facing inwards as shown. By the way, on step 8, we're pressing outside. So we're going to press, this is the first pressing instruction that we've gotten since we started this, but we're going to be pressing outwards away from our center before we put on our step 9 steps. And it may be a little hard to see the bottom there. All right. I feel like I blabber on too much, but I hope all of this information is helpful. All right, so gonna do that. Again, make sure that your H is facing away from your center and your B is facing towards the center. That applies down here as well, because remember, we're flipping at 180. Your H facing away, your B facing in. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sew all this on, and then we'll jump into step number 10 when I get all that done. Oh, let me get in frame. Okay, I should have probably hung this higher, but this is fine. All right, we finished steps 8 and 9. We're moving on to step 10, and it says to join the longer pair of C borders to the left and the right. So we're gonna put our C borders on left and then right. And then it says to then join shorter pairs of C borders to the top and the bottom. So then we're going to take our shorter pair and attach them to the top and the bottom. And then that will complete the intermediate section of what we've done so far. The instructions sound a little weird because it says to join the longer pair to the left and the right, but I think that's because we have a longer amount of fabric, we have a longer measurement here because we're in a rectangle right now. We've got a big rectangle going on, so I think it's talking about the longer ones being on the left and the right because that's the longer side of the rectangle. It didn't make sense for a second, but I think when I actually get it going, it's gonna make plenty of sense. I'm also, when I come back, gonna try and hang this higher so that way I don't have to crouch. All right, let's go ahead and do that and we'll be done with step 10. All right, here we are at the end of step 10. I've added my C border all the way around. I really like that it kind of echoes our C fabric moving outward. I kind of wish I had gotten this fabric, the C fabric, for my extra borders because I think that would have worked out really well, but that's okay. I'm still gonna be really happy with the extra border that I bought, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our next step. So let me grab those pieces. I'm gonna leave this up behind me and we'll move on to step 11. Okay, we're moving on to step number 11. And I'm actually gonna be talking about both 11 and 12 at the same time. It's just gonna be easier for me to get all of that done so that way we can move on to our next step. So step 11, it says to join 2 step 6 units. So this is clue 6 or section 6, whichever one. It says to join section 6 as shown. So what you're doing is you have your A triangles facing downwards and then your GF triangles facing upwards, and it's just going to repeat this pattern. In my colorway, it's green, black, green, black, green, black. Your colorway will obviously be a little bit different, but that's what you're looking for, is that repetitive pattern back and forth. So remember that your clue 6 or section 6 has 3 full triangles and then your partial ones. Moving down to step number 12, it says to join 2 section 4B units. So these are 4B units. You're going to combine those together. And then you're also going to join a C square from this month's clue as shown. So you're going to add a square of C to both ends. So we're combining these. And remember that your 4B clue has 2 full triangles and then your half triangles on either side. So clue 6 has 3 full triangles, clue 4B has 2 full triangles. It's a way you can kind of tell the difference between them. But we're going to go ahead and put all of this together. Remember, you're going to do this step twice. You're going to do this step twice, so that way you have 2 for the top, which is going to be our step 12, and then 2 for the sides, which will be our step 11. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put all that together, and I'll come back when we're added all of it onto when we add it on, because what's going to happen is these are going to end up getting attached onto your quilt, your center section, for step 13. I'll probably come back and talk about that before I actually do it, but I'm going to go ahead and combine all these together. All right, there we go. You can see I've made a lot of progress. It was easier for me just to go ahead and work through them. So I'll catch you up with where I am now. I've completed step 11 and 12. I've already done that. I moved on to 13, where it says to join a step 11 unit to the left and to the right. I did that. Make sure that the A triangles are facing inwards. So my A triangles are facing towards the center of my quilt, by the way. Didn't quite hang it up exactly level. Apologies for that. And then, so I made sure that my A triangles are facing inwards on both the left and right. Then I went ahead and joined for step number 14. It says to join step 12 unit to the top and bottom of the intermediate section with the points of A triangles facing inwards. So again, my A fabric is facing inwards. We have these bow ties being created on all four corners. That's weird. Oh, that would be why. Okay, just notice that my bottom border, or the bottom part there, I did backwards. So I've got to rip all that out. Gosh darn it, every single time I always have to rip something out. All right, anyways, I'm going to rip that out and redo that one. And then I'll be moving on to step number 15. Okay, I have fixed my mistake. Jack and I got very much acquainted with each other, and that has been fixed. The reason I knew something was wrong was because the bow ties down here were not quite matching up. They were actually matching up in the fact that it was, I saw two black, what is that fabric? That is, I think that's F fabric. Two F fabrics next to each other, and I knew something was wrong. So now I've done it correctly. A fabric is pointing in on all sides. It happens. It totally happens. Moving on to step number 15, it says to join the longer pair of wide E borders to the left and to the right. And then we're going to then join the shorter pair of wide E borders to the top and bottom. So basically all we're doing is we're taking our E fabric and we're applying the longer strips to the left and to the right, and then the shorter strips to the top and the bottom to finish out the quilts. So I'm going to go ahead and add these onto my step number 14, and I'll come back when that's done and we'll be officially done. But I've got a little bit more to do after that, so stay tuned. Alright guys, we've finished our puzzle mystery quilt Olympia. I think this looks great. I've added on those E borders so that way this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when it's done, at least for my colorway of Carrie. I think this is E fabric, right? Yeah, E fabric for the borders. Got that right. All right. So I went ahead and purchased some extra fabric from Cotton Cuts because I am 6'2". I like a bigger quilt to snuggle under, and this one would work, but I prefer to have it a little bit bigger because otherwise my feet stick out. So what I did is I purchased some of the A fabric from my colorway of Carrie. And I'm going to take these and add them onto each side of my quilt. This is 7 inches of fabric, so I'm going to add 7 inches to each side. Now, of course, it's not going to be a full 7 inches by the time we get done with the seam allowance. So it's more like 6 3/4, 6 1/2, somewhere around in there. But I'm basically going to add that to each side, and that's going to make for a bigger quilt for me. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on, and I'll meet you back here when I do that. All right, I have finished adding my extra borders that are not included with the kit that I purchased myself. It's a big quilt. It's hard to fit into frame. I may try to put the full framed picture in here. Camera noise. But yeah, it's done. I love it. I love how the fairy dust, that's the name of this fabric here and here. I love how the fairy dust really plays well with the rest of the quilt, and I'm really happy with everything. I did want to mention that instead of the black and white binding, I'm thinking I'm going to go with this green to play off the green inside the triangles. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably going to bind it something like that. I mean, not literally like that, but you'll have this little pup of green off to the side all around the quilt, which I think will really reflect well since it's only really used in this strip right here. I think I like that. I don't know though, my mind is still out, and we'll see if I end up doing that. I may audition both the black and white binding and this green binding to see which one I like better. Anyways, that's gonna do it for the puzzle mystery quilt of, what was this? This was fall 2021. It's hard for me to remember which ones are which. Right now we're working on So Sweet, which is the spring 2022 quilt, and we're getting ready to for the next one, Piazza, for the fall of 2022. I'm getting my words all mixed up at this point, but you know what I'm talking about. Again, thank you to Cotton Cuts for letting me put these tutorial videos together. I really do enjoy getting to do these. They are a lot of fun, and I really love when y'all interact with me. So make sure to leave me a comment. Let me know that you either like this video or if you needed some more help, and I'll do my best to reach out to you and see if I can help you some more. Other than that, I think that's gonna do it for this quilt, and I will see you in the next video. Remember guys, normal's just a setting on the dryer. Bye!